1.
Good morning. Calling to order our Operations and Safety Committee, and it is 10 o'clock, and we will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. You all will join me as the chair for the HART and Operations Safety Committee Pledge of Allegiance, please. It should come up on your screen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all. Welcome to the March 15th Operations and Safety Committee meeting. The meeting format is virtual, as we were unable to secure the quorum that is required for a hybrid meeting. Please note that since there's no quorum present, we are able to only receive staff's presentations of the committee action items, discuss them, and ask for clarification and additional information. However, we are unable to take a vote or form recommendations for the full board. Please look at the screens of your devices. We've already done the Pledge of Allegiance, and then I just ask staff at this point to do a roll call, please.
Good morning. This is Danielle from HART. Director Kemp?
Sorry, here.
Thank you. Director Knight? Director McLean?
Present.
Director Schisler?
Here.
Committee Chair Williams?
Present.
That concludes attendance. Thank you. Committee Chair Williams, you're muted.
Thank you so much. I'm so conscious of the noise in the background. Today's the day they decide to do a lot of stuff in the neighborhood, so I'll try to mute as much as possible so it doesn't distract our call. I'd like to draw everyone's attention to page 3 of the packet to review rules for our meeting, and on page 4, the Operations and Safety Committee roles and responsibilities are provided for your information. So we'll move on to election of committee officers. Due to the lack of physical quorum, the election of committee officers will be postponed into the next meeting that contains a physical quorum. Number 3, approval of minutes. Next, starting on page 5 of the packet, you will see the Operations and Safety Committee virtual workshop meetings from December 21st, 2020 meeting, and the January 25th, 2021 meeting, and the February 15th, 2021 Operations and Safety Committee hybrid meeting. Please review them and let staff know of any edits and comments. However, due to the lack of physical quorum, this approval will be deferred to the next meeting that contains the physical quorum. The next section is our public comment, 3 minutes per speaker. Ms. Arthur, are there any names on the list to give a public comment at this time?
No, ma'am. There was no one pre-registered. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we'll move right on to our presentation. The monthly safety and security update for February 2021. Mr. David Kelsey, Interim Director of Safety, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good morning to you and to the committee members. This morning we will cover accident investigations and analysis. We will also cover some action items, and then I'll open it up for any questions that you may have. Next slide, please. So the accident analysis that we accomplished for this meeting is the February 2020 versus February 2021 comparison. The only increase that we saw were in the amount of privately owned vehicles or other vehicles rear-ending our buses. Typically, we see a bounce back between this, where especially since we're now getting into the spring break season, we start to see more people come in, especially since Florida is now opening up and we're getting into the tourism season. We will see some of these. However, some of the things that we have noticed is that there are some things that we can do to help prevent this. A couple of items that we will be mentioning going down the line and training with our operator staff is to make sure that they don't put themselves into a position where they have to what we call a controlled braking or actually evasive actions. In other words, that they're mindful of what's going on in front of them so that they don't have to brake quickly to avoid another situation. This in turn would lead to vehicles that may be following too close behind to strike them in the rear. The other issue that we've been looking at, and we've been working with the project management office on this, is to relocate bus stops from what we call near side, in other words, before the traffic light or traffic signal, to the far side, which is on the opposite side of the intersection. Basically, what that does is it prevents people from getting impatient sitting behind a bus while they're loading and unloading and and they want to make a right turn and they try to go around the bus, not realizing that the bus is about to take off. By moving the stops to a far side, what we've done is we've created a gap for them to be able to make their right turns while we're no longer blocking the intersection. And again, we will continue to train our operators. Next slide, please. As you can see from this is for our paratransit division. We've more or less remained flat. We have seen in a couple of areas where and I've plotted the paratransit division where we had no fixed object accidents in the month of February. In other words, they didn't hit something that was just sitting there, and also we were not rear-ended by any other vehicles. Everything else except for where a POV strikes hard, everything else was on a downward trend. And we also did not rear anybody in this month. Again, kudos to the paratransit van operators for really taking safety to heart and bringing down these numbers. Next slide, please. Some of the action items that we had in February and early March. We did have in early February, we had another Transportation Security Administration exercise. I did mention this in the last meeting, but I didn't have the final report. And what we saw from this exercise compared to the one in January was an increase in the amount of awareness that was going on. 50% of the individuals that were tested actually found the item that the Transportation Security Administration agents had put out there. And we briefed everybody at the end of the exercise and let them know the outcome of there. And basically it was 44% of the people found the item. There was one that the TSA disallowed because there was a breach of protocol. We've addressed that. The individual did notice it before they were told that the agents were on property. So we consider that a win. It was a 50% increase over the amount of people that had participated in the January 28th exercise. The Joint Health and Safety Committee meeting was held on March the 9th, and we are in the process of putting together those meeting minutes, and then we will go through them and correct any issues that we have, working with our partners in the various departments around the agency. COVID-19, we're into the new presidential directive and the CDC directive, and we are posting signs inside the vehicle. Our operators are active in reminding people that for their safety and the safety of those around them to please have a mask on when they board the bus and when they ride. Our security officers and our transit supervisors are actively monitoring transit stations and reminding people that it is important that when they're on the platforms and inside our transit facilities that they wear a mask and that they do this to protect others. The TSA is assisting us by going to various transit agents or transit facilities on a random basis and reminding people of the presidential directive and what could happen if they don't comply. And we do have supplies of masks that are being given to our transit supervisors and bus operators to pass out for folks that don't have one. And we are mindful that there are some people that have a medical issue that they may not be able to wear them, and we are sensitive to those folks, and we don't push the issue with them if they mention that they do have some sort of a medical issue. And then finally, as with everything else, post-event training is still going on. Whenever we have something that occurs and we can use it as a teachable moment, we'll bring the operator in, the employee in, and we'll sit down and discuss what occurred and things that they did, and if there was anything that we can do to improve the situation. Next slide, please. And at this time, I'll take any questions. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you this morning.
Committee Chair Williams, you're muted.
Thank you so much, Danielle. Mr. Kelsey, thank you so much for your presentation. And I appreciate the simplicity of it so we can see exactly what is taking place on the Safety and Operations Committee, as well as the number of incidents. And it's really good work and focus that you continue to do, even though we're dealing with COVID, you continue to move forward with the training and having those conversations with the employees, and that's very important. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
I don't see any questions. You're very welcome. Thank you. I don't see any questions at this time or hands raised, so we will move on to our next presentation by Justin Loeffler, Director of Maintenance.
Good morning, Chair, members of the board. Justin Loeffler, Director of Maintenance. I'm here today to give you some information on the radio system replacement project. Next slide. So HART current system is a very reliable 13-year-old analog system licensed by the FCC on the 400 megahertz bands. The system has 7 channels, 5 that are used for voice and 2 that are used for data communications. And it's maintained by 6 radio shop technicians who also maintain fare boxes, cameras, and head signs. So the picture in front of you shows how the system works. The operator through the MTT can communicate directly with the dispatch. So voice and data goes through a radio controller or a computer that's on board. That sends the information to the radios and is transmitted out and picked up by the tower that's located on 21st. At the base of the tower is some base stations that turns the data and the voice communication back into digital format. And the data goes to a CAD AVL server, and the voice goes directly to the dispatcher with the control station and radio console. So how we got to where we are today is the MPO tip priority process awarded HART $10 million for ITS replacement for 2023. And HART accelerated funding of $5 million to get started with the project. The consultant, IBI, was brought on board to provide us some options, and these are the options that were provided by IBI. So if you're anything like me, you probably look first at the total ownership costs. These are not very accurate data because it was right after the All for Transportation tax, and there was anticipation of the fleet growing. But the 4 options that they provided, option 1 is to move our current radio system to a digital format. However, they did also, when they looked at this option, they looked at moving us to the 800 megahertz bands, which is quite a bit more expensive than our current 400 megahertz. Option 2 was to join the county's radio system. The county operates on a 800 megahertz bands, and they have about 19 towers throughout the county. Options 3 and 4 uses the technology of voice over internet protocol. This is viable options. However, we would have to wait for the whole ITS replacement that is projected to happen sometime after 2023. The good thing about joining the radio and the CAD AVL projects together is that it would probably save HART about $1 million in integrations. So next slide, please. So there's pros and cons of both systems. Owning our own systems means that we can change how it's configured on the fly. We can accommodate equipment failures or operational needs. It's less costly overall to maintain. However, the system that we have right now is very dated, and we need to replace some of the equipment pretty soon. Joining the county system means that we would have direct links to emergency services, better coverage, and a share of upgrade costs. HART, however, would have to pay contractors for services that are currently being done by HART staff and would have to pay to buy into the system. So looking at our next steps. Next steps would be to figure out what the actual cost will be to join the county system, any reoccurring costs, and any HART responsibilities. Finding out what the cost would be to replace our current system with a digital 400 megahertz variant, and to compare these options, and to also look at the time frame to see if the voice over IP is more relevant because of the time frame. So while we're doing this, we're also looking at some radios that are a little bit more powerful than the current radios that we use, and they're both analog and digital. So that means if we did upgrade our system to a digital system, we would be able to use those radios. So we're hoping that these might give us better coverage in the South County where we have some coverage outages. So that concludes my presentation. Do you guys have any questions for me?
Thank you, Mr. Lafleur. We do have a question from Councilman Gil Schisler. You're recognized.
Thank you. Very good report. I appreciate the information. Thank you, Chair. One of my biggest concerns with the overall radio system was the incident that we had earlier this year, or it was in the middle of last year, where a rider took command or took control of the unit and drove or forced our driver to go to a very remote part of the county. And due to the way the system was structured, there were issues with them being able to track and keep up with her. I recognize the expense and everything that goes along with it, but are we getting anywhere? I mean, you know, if we have another situation like this crop up, and there's somebody gets harmed, it will pay the repercussions and lack of security to our drivers will pale to the expense will pale to that. So I'm just trying to make sure we get a secure system as quickly as we can. And I recognize, given the constraints that you're working with, I know this is a very costly affair to work with. So I appreciate the effort, and I just hope we just keep moving forward with this, so that we can make sure that our drivers and people are safe throughout the whole system.
Thank you, Councilman Schisler. That's a very good point, and the exercise we're doing today in comparison to what we'll get. So, are you able to speak on that, Mr. Lafleur, please?
Yeah. So the radios that we are purchasing, they are a little bit more powerful. So we have 95% coverage throughout the county. It's a little bit spotty in the south portion of the county, and that's where the incident that Mr. Schisler spoke to occurred. I'm hoping that once we get the new radio in and we test it out, I mean, that's the first place we're going to go, is into those areas where we lack some coverage, and see if that makes a difference or not. That'll really tell us whether or not our current system would be able to handle better coverage throughout the county, or if we need to look into a better option.
Thank you. Commissioner Kemp, you're recognized.
Thank you. I know you're proceeding with talking to the county, and you did some outline of some of the pros and cons or difficulties or challenges, but I just wanted to, and I guess this is to Ms. LeGrand, I just didn't know if there's any needs that HART had vis-a-vis the county in terms of discussion or negotiation with regards to this, because I just wanted to put out, offer to facilitate that in any way I can, should that become necessary.
So, Director Kemp, thank you for the opportunity and the offer. We are walking through the process, and I just wanted to, respond to Mr. or Director Schisler's comment. Not only do we not have good service in those areas in the south of the county, cell coverage is not there either, right? So that's really what the challenge is. It's not even that we can use redundancy of using the cell towers to help us with having access to communications, because that's not there either. So what we're really trying to do, as Mr. Lafleur mentioned, is to initially start off with looking at that 5% where we don't have coverage and seeing if these radios, it's old school technology, but in a way, that might be the technology that we need to couple with new school technology so that we can ensure we have that level of redundancy. So, that's really what the team is focused on doing right now to ensure that we don't have, as they call it, any dead zones. And then, as we proceed, we're also looking at some other things that are, hopefully they'll come online at the same time. So we have a CAT AVL system that we're trying to fully deploy. And with that, we would have access to information on every vehicle and every vehicle's location, again, with technology, which would also serve as another layer of redundancy. So, we're hopeful that we can bring all of these projects together as quickly as possible, but again, being able to coordinate directly with the county with your offer would also be helpful as well. So we'll definitely reach out to you offline to see how we can do that. But thank you.
Committee Chair Williams, you're muted.
All right. By the time this is over, I'll be off mute, right? Director McLean, you're recognized.
Director McLean, you're muted.
Ms. Williams, I'm following your lead. I apologize. I should have took my hand down. Ms. LeGrand touched on the redundancy issues that I was going to bring up. So thank you very much. And good answer, Ms. LeGrand.
Thank you. I don't see any other hands raised at this time, so we will move on to our one and only committee action item. As a reminder, the committee members will be able to receive presentations from staff, discuss and ask for additional information. After that, to form a consensus vote recorded by staff that will be presented for the full board of directors at their next scheduled regular board meeting. The action item is to authorize the chief executive officer to award a contract for construction services to Flores Contract Construction for the construction of a bus bay with shelter pad and landing pad at State Road 60 and Strawberry Ridge Boulevard in the amount of $127,555 plus contingency of $12,755,000. Oh, I'm sorry, 12,000. Let me correct that. Plus a contingency of $12,755.50 for a total not to exceed the amount of $140,310.50. Mr. Dwayne Brown, Project Manager 1, you are recognized to present this action.
Yes, ma'am. Good morning. This project was submitted as a part of the Hillsborough interlocal agreement for capital projects programs, capital improvement programs for FY 20 and 21. Hillsborough County Zone 7 impact fees will fully fund this project. Barring your questions.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Commissioner Kemp, you are recognized.
Yes, I was just curious to see on the map where it's located, or what service we have going there, or what we intend to have going there.
Yes, ma'am. I can get that for you. Currently that route is the Route 46, and it goes out into Brandon, and it is currently located right adjacent to a 55 and older community, and we discussed this as a part of the interlocal agreement and the 5-year plan, because we had some riders who weren't able to get on and off that bus stop because they had disabilities, and they were requiring wheelchairs and mobility issues there. The bus stop currently is located in the grass, and it is right next to the Dover. It's the stop directly in front of the Dover Park and Ride and it requires for our patrons to go to cross the street and go all the way over to the Dover park and ride in order to get on the bus, instead of them being able to just get on the bus right at their stop. And so it was requested that, I would say in 2019, that we build a stop there in order for the patrons at that 55 and older stop to be able to, at that 55 and over community, to be able to ride the bus there.
It sounds like a very worthy project, and of course we have the county impact fee dollars, a good thing to pay for that, and a real upgrade. But I think if you could, when you present this to the full board, a map of where it is, kind of what the design looks like, what the issues and problems are, as you just outlined, just to give, and what service goes through there, to give people an idea of what we are building there, and you know how it will serve and who it will serve.
Yes, ma'am, that's not a problem. It will be done.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and this is Director McLean. I agree with Commissioner Kemp's comments there. Good points.
Thank you. Okay, are there any other, I'm sorry, did I hear someone speak?
Yes, Chairman Williams. Also, this is Director Knight. I agree also with Director Kemp and we said it in other meetings, that bring as much information as possible, make our job a lot easier in presentation and as it goes forward. So, sounds real well, but I'd like to know all the specifics. Thank you.
Thank you. Are any members of the committee who have objections for approval of this item by the full board of directors? Hearing none, staff will record a consensus of committee, understanding that the request of Commissioner Kemp, Director McLean, and Director Knight have the specificity needed for the meeting at the full board. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Brown, for your presentation. This concludes the regular business for today. Do we have any old business? Any new business? Hearing none, the meeting is adjourned. Have a wonderful day. Thank you.